Hi, my name is Tiny I'm an artist and this is my first ever video on YouTube. I'm sure it's going to make me cringe later, but you gotta start somewhere, so here it comes. For my first ever video, I wanted to show one of my experimental sketchbooks. A couple of years ago, I took Adolfo Sierra's online course about illustration techniques and unlocking your creativity. This is not an advertisement, I just like the course and think it's nice to give credit. One of the exercises there was a fearless copying of any famous painting. The fun part about this exercise is not to make the exact copy of the painting, but make as many copies as possible using as many materials and techniques as possible. So I took this little sketchbook that I already had. It took me just 2 days to fill it in, but I was doing it from morning till evening and my room was a mess because I had to take out all the materials that I had, and even those that are not supposed to be in a sketchbook. For my practice, I chose this amazing Gustav Klimt's painting. I want to talk a little bit more about each copy. I'm just going to cover some unrelated notes, and here is Horsey, she's going to keep me company. This was the first copy I've done and I spent quite some time with it, and I used a bunch of different materials here. There are colored pencils, there are Copic markers, you can see some were acrylic markers. And for the golden background, her necklace and the belt, I used liquid golden leaf. My goal was to copy it as close as possible, and I think I got it. But I didn't have any plan on how to proceed, so I think I panicked a little bit with the second one. So again, I mixed a bunch of materials. There are watercolor pencils, some Faber-Castell brush pens, and some stuff that I don't even remember. But I did change my colors and experimented a little bit with my mark making. And the result is kind of weird, but for the second attempt, I think it's fine. On my third copy, I began to exhibit some creative thinking. I drew the figure with some liner and collaged the background and some details. It looks very simple, but I'm kind of happy with this piece. Here, it's more about design than the actual drawing skills, and I think it's important to cultivate it too. Fourth copy gave me a fashion sketch feeling. What I noticed here is that I already learned the composition and was just copying it without thinking. But it was still fun to make it because I got to use my fancy metallic Sennelier ink and a pen called Cologne. It leaves very interesting marks and I think I would like to experiment with it more. For the next one, I made a decision to simplify the colors as much as possible, and I used Kohinoor Gioconda oil chalks. I don't know what it is. It doesn't feel like soft pastel, it doesn't feel like oil pastel, it's something in between. I like how simplified palette makes this copy pop. What I don't like is how I treat the bottom of the painting. It feels like I don't care about it at all. For the next copy I used watercolor pencils. I never used them before, so I decided to experiment and I tried a couple of different techniques. I used them as regular watercolors. I drew with dry pencil over wet paper, and I would put a pencil in water and then draw with it. That was fun. Now this one is one of my favorite. I've done it with my left hand. I obviously can draw with my left hand, I just don't do it, so it was a challenge since I'm not used to it. The materials I used here were Copic markers and colored pencils. Honestly, I'm amazed with the result. Maybe I should try drawing with my feet, maybe I'm that kind of genius. With this one, I went even further. I drew it without looking down at what I'm drawing. This approach is always fun and I really recommend to try it. Finally, I got to one of my favorite mediums, oil pastels. It was already getting late, I was getting really tired, so I did not bother to do something extra creative. I just enjoyed the medium. I love oil pastels for its ability to move after it's placed on a surface, much like oil paint. It could be layered, colors could be mixed right on a surface. If there is a mistake, you could just scrape it off. And surprisingly, it is possible to work on fine details on the tiniest sketches. You just need to get a hang of it. This one was the last one for that day. It was almost midnight when I realized that I could do an abstract minimalistic collage. I work with collage from time to time, so I have a file full of cutouts from magazines sorted by color. It was really useful, otherwise I would run around trying to find something to butcher to implement my fresh new genius idea. I think this is another very interesting sketch and it could be developed into something interesting. My next day I began by adding some colored paper to my sketchbook. It seemed like a logical move because before I was working from light to dark and now I wanted to try working on a dark background. I used Derwent drawing pencils for this one. They are oil-based, so they could leave very thick marks, which is what I needed. What I like the most about this sketch is the level of stylization that I was able to achieve. I like how I simplified the background and I love the contour, which gives a feeling of glowing and makes the figure pop. I have never done anything like this one before. It's a cutout from the same colored paper and the color laid on the page beneath it. I can't say I'm happy with the result. It's a little bit weird and clumsy, but the process of making it was so much fun. There were some old drawings on these pages, so I covered this one with the colored paper again. Here I use an acrylic marker from Molotov, which has very interesting tip and leaves very interesting marks. And for golden background I use decorative golden paste that I use for my sculptures. What I liked about it that it could be applied with very thin layer and it would still give the metal shiny look. Honestly, I don't like this one. Lazy, it's boring, nothing interesting is happening here. It was ink, brush and watercolor paper. Finally, I got to my favorite material, graphite pencil. This version was inspired by a drawing I saw on Pinterest. Unfortunately, I don't remember the name of the artist. If I will put it down in the description. What I wanted to do here is to get this liquid flowing look using just graphite pencil. I think I achieved it. I did something unforgivable to her jaw, which makes me laugh every time I look at it. But I'm very, very happy with what I've done with texture and how I stylized the whole thing. If you never before tried a multicolored pencil, I think you should. At first it feels uncontrollable, unpredictable, but then as you draw you learn to tilt it, you learn to turn it in your hand to get to a certain color. And the process becomes very fun and actually very fast because you don't need to put down a pencil to get another color. It's a mighty tool. Once again, I had no idea what to do, so I took watercolor and got lazy with it again. I don't like this copy and it's just there as an evidence of my process. Then I took a charcoal pencil. And again, no new ideas, no new composition, nothing new, except somehow I managed to make her very happy and content. But to be honest, I didn't push myself to be extra creative and to rethink the whole painting. I was just trying different techniques and different materials. So I was very surprised when this happened. This is the first copy which I reframed and significantly changed what's going on in it. I think my brain got finally tired of repeating one thing over and over and over again, and it produced something interesting. I know it might not look like much, but for me it was a very important point. I learned how much time and repetition I need to produce something new without being forceful. And it's about a couple of days of very intense work or 15-20 attempts, which is not a lot. And the medium that I used here is the same decorative metallic paste that I use for my sculptures, and I applied it with a Q-tip. So I finally got to my creative flow, but that was the end of my sketchbook, and that threw me off a little bit. So I took my Copic markers and made the most boring copy ever. To summarize, I spent 2 days copying Gustav Klimt's Judith. I made 20 different copies of it. I used 15 different techniques and materials. I like at least 10 of these copies and I really like 5 of them. And I learned that for me to get to some new creative ideas, I don't need to be pushy. I just need to be patient and persistent. In my opinion, all this makes it a successful personal project. And I think that I should do it again sometime. I really hope you liked the video, because more is coming, so like, subscribe, leave a comment, or just secretly come back and watch my other videos. Bye!